All right, here we go. One take. ATEM Mini Extreme and Extreme ISO dropped yesterday. Here are my thoughts and an in-depth pro and cons. I watched the live stream. Brian behind the camera, we were both in gigs yesterday, so we couldn't make this video then. But after sitting on everything that dropped for a day, I actually have different thoughts than I did while watching the live stream. Watching the live stream, I was super excited. I was like, oh my gosh, a super source, aux outputs, camera control, 8 inputs, all in the ATEM Mini size. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. They changed the game. Immediately, I was like, can I buy this? And for the record, I did buy one, okay? And that's actually not saying a lot because I only bought one. I usually buy 2 of everything. One is primary and a backup, and just because we scale, things like that. But I only bought one because I don't think it's really going to be our company's saving grace. So let's talk about pros and cons of the ATEM Mini Extreme and what that means for not only small people, beginners, but pros and larger companies. Features, let's get into it. Okay, so Super Source, awesome. We use the Super Source all the time. It's why we have the 8K Constellation. Brian, show them some transitions. We do these guys all the time because, we made them. And now I don't have to make transitions for an ATEM Mini. We can start sending these out to people with an Extreme. It's going to be great. And that's really going to change the game for virtual stuff. Everyone's going to be able to do virtual panel discussions now, high quality, get a streaming bridge. If you don't have one, we don't have one, and now I might pick them up because of this and how small everything can get. Okay, what else? The ports. Ports are awesome. 2 aux outputs, 8 inputs, 2. There's a headphone jack, I believe now. I actually never saw the headphone jack. I might have missed that. But
yeah, there's a headphone
jack.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So there's a headphone jack. You have mic in still. 2 USB-Cs. Now you can record and you can do webcam out to your computer, as well as you have the network port on it for whether you want to stream, do control, possibly do both. I think it's only stream if you'll have to get the control via the USB-C, the way ports work. So yeah, the ports are awesome. 2 aux outs, super cool. They're assignable, so that means I can do a multi-view on one, program on the other. I could do a giant preview program. I could send one for a confidence monitor and keep a multi-view for myself. I can have one be a confidence monitor, one be for a projector. So many possibilities there. Super great. And I'll get to why that's not good enough for me. But I'm super picky. That's just me personally.
Also, the multi-views, it's the same as the 8K, the Constellation.
Yeah. Yep, great point. So all those boxes in a multi-view are assignable now. So you can do a 2x2. You could make one box big and all the others small. Up to 16 boxes in your multi-view, which is super helpful.
Here's mine. You can kind of see it there.
Yeah, you can see it in Brian's shot there.
Yeah.
We customized the hell out of it. Now it is only one multi-view. So it's not like our 8K where you can do 4 different multi-views and customize them all. That's what Brian had on his screen there. But yeah, that's super, super helpful. Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? So that's that. Let's see what else. We talked about ports. Talk about the controls on the front. All right, on the top. This is a tabletop controller. Waiting for that rack mount. Waiting for that hybrid. I'll get into that later. So tabletop controller, you still got your 8 buttons. Love the fact that they took like where the blackout button and the media player button was, and they threw in the Super Source there. What was the other thing they threw in there? Oh, 2 media players, right? So that's freaking awesome there. So pumped. Audio controls pretty much the same. The fact that they can squeeze all the audio into a small box like that is awesome. All that Focusrite stuff. Camera control, super, super good for us. That's one of the things I'm super excited about. That just becomes very speedy now. So I believe what is it default to? ISO, right?
Yeah.
And so what all that means is if you have Blackmagic cameras, they can be controlled through HDMI, and because they released those 3G converters, that means I can control my pro grade SDI studio cameras through an ATEM Mini, and vice versa. I can start using the Pocket Cinemas with larger switchers, which we are going to do actually next week. For something, we're going to mount it on a gimbal. It's going to active track people. It's going to be great. But the only reason we can do that is because we put a small camera on a gimbal and not a giant studio camera. So the camera controls are awesome. Again, this is not like necessarily a full depth review of the camera. We will do a review when I get mine in. I did buy the ISO, not just the Extreme, because we're going to want to record all of the inputs that we have, or at least all the active inputs. Brian and I, we talked very minimally about this. So Brian and I, we're going to get into probably pro cons, what we're liking, but in terms of what I see right off the back, I'm thrilled. 6 macros on screen, great. I don't really care. I use a Stream Deck with it anyway, so it's not a huge thing for me, but maybe I will focus more on my first 6 macros that I program so they show up there. People talked about being able to reprogram them. I don't know if those macros are reprogrammable. Brian, do you know? Like if I can just switch what those 6 buttons do in terms of which macros they affect? Or
I'm sure you can, but
yeah, that'll be an update if it isn't. It's a really smart idea. What else we got on here? What are my notes? So we got the multi-views. Okay, 4 upstream keyers. That is huge. 2 DVEs, and we got the 2 downstream keys. We have obviously the 2 USB-Cs. So the upstream keyers, let me touch on that because that is so cool in a switcher this small. Obviously, they pitched it as like you can do 4 green screens at the same time and get your virtual sets. Personally, we don't use green screens that often. Maybe we will now. Maybe in that small form factor, maybe we will. That, for me, screamed overlays, right? That, to me, said, holy crap, now I can spread out all my overlays, whether I'm using media players, using inputs, things like that. The 8 inputs actually now opens you up to doing key and fills and not losing all your inputs in an ATEM Mini, which is really cool there. So, I do a bug, I can do a lower third, I can do maybe a scrolling text. I can keep them all separate and pull them in and out as I want. This really helps anyone do a one-man show. So that's a bunch of... Brian, do you want to get into any features? I do want to touch on things that I think it's missing, things that I was like, damn, I was really hoping for that. But Brian, tell me what you think if I missed anything feature-wise.
Yeah, I mean, the ISO, so that's 9 records in one box, which is just insane.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, so in terms of the bit rate and resolutions there, the bit rate for your program record is going to be the same as whatever you're streaming, but you get very high bit rates. I think it's like 70. I don't know what the unit of measure there is, but very high bit rates on your ISO records, which means you're getting really nice. I mean, it's only 1080 still, but you're getting very nice resolution. It's not Blackmagic RAW or anything, Brian. It's just color correction, things like that.
Yeah, no, it's not Blackmagic RAW, but it does have the option like the ISO does now to record in cameras if you have the Pocket Cinemas, so that's cool.
Yeah. So if you want to record 4K, obviously, and I guess the Extreme can do this as well, and not just the ISO, but yeah, trigger the records in your Pocket Cinemas, record 4K, 6K there, and then still, and the cool thing about that...
Can the ISO or the Pro now, can it trigger record in a...
Yep. Yeah, the Pro should be able to trigger records. That's just a firmware thing. But the reason you would want an ISO is for the XML file that it pushes out, right?
The resolve file.
The resolve file, which technically is an XML file, or at least the data there. So the way that works basically is you hit record on an ISO and it triggers your cameras to record. Then you switch the show live. So 20 seconds in, you cut to 1 to 2. 40 seconds after that, you cut 2 to 3 or back to 1. The XML file is keeping track of every single cut you're making, overlays, things like that. Now what you can do is you can go into Resolve, take your 4K or 6K or whatever footage that you record in camera, bring that into Resolve, swap it for your 1080p files. Now you have a switched 4K entire show, right? Because you're recording cameras, and the only way you get that is with something like the ISO, which is going to pop out that resolve an XML file for you. So that's what's really cool about that. Again, I don't think we have a need for 8 inputs recording ISOs. Maybe if we go back to doing our Zoom records and stuff, which I don't think is going to happen in the future. I think Zoom is that's a whole different thing. I think they're killing it. So,
well, we did run into plenty of problems, or the need for more records when taking our HD studio out. Not having enough hyperdecks, or just needing to have 4 hyperdecks in your rack.
Yep.
Those are, how much are hyperdecks? $1,000 or $800?
Around 800. Yeah. Don't get me started on how hyperdecks and things like that. Like this changed the game for a lot of good reasons and for a lot of bad reasons for higher ups. So so the records there are sick, and now you don't, like, I can tell you we did other videos with our TV studio, our HD television studio, which now I think is obsolete, okay? Basically a big paperweight at this point, but you don't need hyperdecks, you don't need a web presenter, and you don't need the switcher, and you can get all of it for $1,200, and the capabilities are way higher than what this $5,000 box did, right? With 3 hyperdecks, power strips, SDI cables, converters, web presenter, and switcher. $6,000. Now you can do all of it for $12 in a way smaller form factor, way easier, and you've quadrupled the capabilities. I mean, a super source right there. Like, you couldn't do that in anything smaller. And I'll get into why and what that means going forward, why I'm excited for the future of Blackmagic. And I'm like, this is awesome, but I'm not like, I need this, I need 10 of them. Like, this is all I'm ever going to need. All right, what other features there? I do want to get into things that I want on it that it didn't have. And they're probably, what people could guess, but I might have different reasons for it that other people might not. Brian, anything else on the feature side of the Extreme?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, so what it's missing, okay? People were bummed it's not 4K, whatever. No one's streaming in 4K. That's not really a need right now. If I want to stream in 4K, I'm going to use maybe one of my Ultra Studios as an input to my computer, and I have 4K Ultra Studio, so I'm good there. The reason it doesn't record in 4K, but we just talked about how you can record in camera and get a 4K output, through Resolve, and do it that way. 4K. The reason I'm somewhat sad, even that it doesn't have inputs that take 4K. I don't care about an output in 4K. I want an input in 4K. And the reason is for 4K overshooting. What is 4K overshooting? We use all 4K cameras, okay? We have the Pocket Cinemas, we have the studios, and then we have, Sony's and other cameras that can output in 4K. When you're a one-man band, you don't necessarily want to be on a camera moving, zooming in, panning, tilting, things like that. I'd rather set up a camera in the back of the room, get a wide shot, and then be able to zoom in on each person. Let's say I'm doing a panel of 4 people. I can zoom in on each person, get that close cropped shot. And if I shoot that in 4K, I can zoom into it and get 1080p. I can get a 1080p shot. I'm not losing any resolution in my output. That's why I want 4K. That's called 4K overshooting. It's been around. The idea has been around for a very long time. And the way you do that in an ATEM Mini or in an ATEM switcher is you use a DVE. And you basically you make macros, you blow up the DVE past 100%, and you're zooming into the image. The issue, though, right now is that, the whole switchers in the ProGrade series, they're one resolution. So you either shoot in 4K and you're outputting in 4K, which you can then downscale later to 1080, which is what most people would do in this kind of situation, or the whole switcher's stuck at 1080, and then all the inputs come in, it down reses right immediately to 1080, and then even if you zoom in, you're zooming into a 1080p image. I was hoping, again, my standards are insanely high. If this was going to absolutely blow my mind and say I don't need anything else, it'd have to be pretty damn good. So 4K would have helped get it there. And so 4K overshooting, you just want to sit there, one guy behind a desk with this macros, can see absolutely everything, zoom into different people. All of a sudden, when someone gets up and walks around, I can almost zoom out the image, right? Things like that. More aux outs. Okay. Here's why you would want more aux outs. Let me get straight. This is perfect for those scenarios I listed at the beginning. Projector, confidence monitor, done. Multi-view, program out, done. iMag with a multi-view, like all those things, right? Not good enough for us. We need more aux outs. The reason is we just have so many places we're sending signal to. So I don't usually have one confidence monitor. I might have 4. I'm literally looking at 4 confidence monitors right now. I have a video wall behind me. We have a giant program preview up there. We have obviously our multi-views. We have returns back to Zoom. We might be doing separate streams, one with a caption and one without a caption. So like it's capable of doing any of those things, but obviously not all of them. Now, Brandon, you're asking so much from a little switcher. Yeah, absolutely right. I'm showing all the pros and cons. It's not going to replace our 8K Constellation, nor is it nearly the price point. 8K Constellation's like 10 grand. This thing's $1,000, right? But I just want to point out, if you're looking to do this, what I fear is that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to take this thing and I can now go on site. You can totally do that. You're just not going to be able to do as many things at the same time. Now, if you're going to get tricky with it and say, okay, well, at this point in a show, I'm going to switch the use of these things. I don't need a confidence monitor, so I'm going to make it my personal multi-view so I can do this. And then when someone goes up on stage, I'm going to lose my multi-view, make it a confidence monitor with the PowerPoint on it for them. And you could do all that, right? You're making sacrifices now. But again, $1,200 switcher, make the sacrifices at your price point and get the show done that you need. So that's preferably, I want, my perfect switcher is going to be something like 20, perfect like hybrid switcher, like small enough to take with me, going to have everything I need, going to give me all the flexibility I need on site, but not necessarily good enough for a studio. The studio that we're using now, we're using all 24 outputs of our 8K Constellation. We're using probably 30 plus inputs, maybe more. I'm probably closer to the 35 range. Which is everything we have going on here. And that's because we never rewire. We never have to like move cables, plug in something, add audio. Like everything's just already wired to go. The only thing we do per show is reroute signals, right? We already had all the cables. We have all the TVs here. We just move them around, route different signals to them. We have a 12 by 12 hub in here too. So you match the Extreme with maybe a video hub. Now we're talking. Now we have some real capabilities. A 40 by 40 video hub's probably around the $3,000 mark. So now for $4,000, now you're starting to compete with an 8K Constellation in terms of capabilities. You're still not going to get all the flexibility. It's not going to be all nice, but you're really starting to compete with what it can do when you match a 40 by 40 with an Extreme. Okay, XLRs, not a big deal. That's just from a professional wise, like I would love XLRs, even if they were mini XLRs. Like I can work with that, like they do on the video system, the Blackmagic cameras. I think they could have thrown it in there, but again, like I'm still in awe at this thing. Like the Extreme is amazing. Brian, anything that it was missing for you?
I mean, there's no SDI. I wrote a few things down, but
yeah, along with the SDI thing, like they're obviously hitting at the consumer market, right? That's what they're doing, and everyone in the comments is going to say this, Blackmagic's going to say this. You want all those things, buy a bigger switcher. Absolutely. They have a solution for everything. I have not been able to go to Blackmagic and say, I want this, and them not really deliver, unless I'm talking like pan tilt camera, blah, blah, blah. But I have solutions for all of those. But like this, for what they're trying to hit, what they're trying to do, what they've allowed to do at a small price point, absolutely amazing. So I don't want to downplay that. But I don't want to say this is the best switcher ever. This is the best switcher at that price point. vMix, it can do all these things. Why do I not use vMix? I was heavily into vMix. I know a lot of people that are. And vMix, the only reason I went ATEM Blackmagic route is because it's hardware built purpose, right? Where vMix, you run it on a computer. If you get a hardware built computer, you're still going to have to process through a processor, through graphics cards, things like that. Now you're talking about millisecond delays, which doesn't mean much in virtual settings or even back and forth virtually. It means a lot when you start doing iMag. You take a camera, you run it through a computer, you put it up on screen. As I wave my hand, a couple milliseconds, almost a second later, you might actually see it on screen. That's confusing to me. That's distracting. So I try to get everything down to as minimal as possible. Like I literally think about how many decimeters I'm going to run in the line, and is that going to be too much of a delay? Like I want, as you wave your hand on your iMac screen, your hand's waving at the exact same time, and people can't really tell the difference. That's pro level for me. That's like you care. Not that you care, but like you're trying it really hard to make this the best possible thing, like eliminate all possible distractions and things like that. That's why I think this ATEM is awesome. That's why I go the ATEM route. That's why I like all of these switchers, and that's why I'm getting one. I think this is a little big to throw in your backpack. I literally was on a job the other day, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to need here. I was getting contracted to do the job. I wasn't supposed to provide any gear. I was just there to be labor, basically. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw a Stream Deck in my bag. I'm going to throw an ATEM Mini ISO in my bag. I'm going to throw this because it's just so useful, right? The only thing I didn't take with me is probably my video assist. I was like, they have monitors there. I don't need to. If I need to record, I got the ISO. If I need to get a webcam, I got the ISO. If I need to bring in multiple pieces and send out one signal, I got the ISO. So the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, that is. This guy, I don't think I'm going to throw in my bag. This, I might, probably will. You know that live stream rack that we did really well on, everyone liked? Gone. Okay? I'm going to probably gut the thing and replace almost everything in there with this extreme ISO. And then, I'll probably just make drawers, have accessories, cables, store laptop, whatever. I'm going to gut the thing. I'm going to keep the 3 displays. 3 displays are good. Okay? I might upgrade those displays at one point. But, 6-foot table with a giant rack, flip-up monitors, the thing is fast. This Extreme just makes the whole thing cleaner. It's way nicer. Okay, that's what was missing for me. Brian, you something to...
Yeah, and on top of that, they mentioned in the release that it works really well with the control panel.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh, yes.
Well, I was gonna say that. I mean, the thing literally is a control panel. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The buttons on it, I think, are really well laid out, and I don't see any need for a control panel with it. Do you?
That's a good point. The only when I was talking to other people, I brought that up. The only need I see for a control panel is just the control panel's like a standard, right? We're talking about the 1ME advanced panel in this case, which we have. I might like a 2ME for our Constellation, which just has so many inputs. We end up reprogramming buttons, but we end up using Stream Decks almost just as much as the control panel, so the 1ME is fine for us. Do I see me using it? No, you don't need it. Not at all. I could switch a whole show with the ATEM Extreme by itself, Mini Extreme. But if I want to sit, let's say a Pro, let's say the techs that we hire, which are only on big switchers and things like that, ATEM is actually a small brand to them, right? Blackmagic ATEMs are like, that's low level to them. They're going to want something like a 1ME control panel for them to be successful, for them to sit down, spend 15 minutes on it, and all of a sudden they're good. Let's do a show. Let's run a show. So, I mean, that's just way more satisfying too. Like, it's a plastic build, right? It's a plastic build, the ATEM Mini Extreme. The buttons, they feel good. They did a really good job. But it's not as satisfying or as firm or as maybe builds confidence as that 1ME advanced panel does. That is a solid build. You can hit more macros on that thing. You don't have that many inputs on an Extreme, but it'll fill up at least the whole first 10 buttons on the front of that guy, as well as transition things, all that. Again, the Extreme has most of that on the front. But the advanced panel, in my opinion, is just a nicer panel. If you already have it, don't go buy it. It's stupid to go buy it for this reason. But if you already have it, maybe it's easy to set up a station for yourself and just plug the ATEM into it versus having to rewire everything or whatnot. So I mean, there's one way out there reason. But yeah, Brian, you're right. you don't need an advanced panel at all. You shouldn't get one if you don't have one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great control surface, like in itself. Did you want to touch on the other announcements?
Yeah. So the web presenter. This will bring me back to what I was talking about, the 2ME as well. The web presenter. This thing is awesome. If you have an ATEM Mini already, you don't need this thing. If you are maybe on the 2ME, 4ME, 8K Constellation style, and you don't have a bunch of ATEMs, then you probably want to pick this up. We have something ridiculous like 9 ATEMs Minis, so we're good on getting an HDMI signal in and pushing it to a computer or using it as an encoder. But I might pick one of these up in the future. Here's why. Okay, this thing, obviously, let me pull up it on here. Give me a sec. But this thing is so cool from a data analytics perspective. Obviously, it does HD. The old web presenter did 720. We have like 2 or 3 of those other older web presenters. We use them to go into Zoom or something because Zoom's not going more than 720 right now. Maybe HD. Maybe it will in the future. Trying to scroll down here. But anyway, it's on their homepage. The HD Blackmagic web presenter. Where's their data analytics? I mean, it shows it right there on the home screen there. Now, this thing's great. They literally place it next to an AK if they're not trying to tell you that this is what's about to happen. Data analytics is great. You can use it as an encoder now instead of just plugging into a computer. It has 2 USB-Cs, one on the back, one on the front. So I believe that means you can plug in 2. Can I get my hand in here? Where is it? 2 laptops and get webcams out to both of them, maybe.
Does it have 2?
It has 2, one on the front and one on the back, I believe. Let me confirm. I mean, it says right there, plug it into a phone, stream. Does that mean? Holy crap, I didn't realize this. That means you can stream wirelessly by hooking it up to a phone, using your phone, tethering to it. Now you're using the cellular of your phone, and you're using the encoder of the Blackmagic, and you're streaming. This is now a backup. This might change. This might change my reasoning right here. This is an instant backup now. Internet goes out where you're on site. This is a backup. Stream to YouTube, stream to Facebook. Not a preferred backup. I'd rather use like my Mophie. Now my Mophie's like almost outdated. It is outdated, right? I would not suggest getting a Mophie at this point. But which is a cellular like tethering hotspot kind of thing. But yeah, this I didn't realize this
before
at the time.
All of the ATEM Minis with the software update that they announced yesterday, have that capability.
Oh, never mind. I'm out. I didn't know that. Okay.
You didn't watch the full thing. You skipped through it, didn't you?
I was in the middle of a gig watching it live. Like
I was texting you updates too.
Yeah, you were texting me updates. Like I was trying to make sure I hit all my cues.
You just skipped right to the ATEM Extreme part.
Oh, I did. I was scrubbing through it. I was looking. I was immediately trying to buy it while we were live.
No, that was the first thing they mentioned.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So I'm maybe no longer an expert at this very second on everything ATEM Mini, but I will be as soon as we finish this video. Yeah, the USB output. The monitoring is just awesome. You pull up my screen again. What do we have on here? We have the if we can pull up this guy, my screen here. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so that I would just from an impressive standpoint, like to a client, like if you own a studio, like get a web presenter, just put a TV on the wall with this on it, and just have it next to you. We usually have our ATEM Mini with our multi-view on it streaming out, and I have a laptop next to it where I'm watching the stream to the right of our system. So that way it's like out of the way. It's probably 6 feet away from our hands. I just look at it, make sure we're good to go. It's just like nice to see. But I rather look at this. I'm gonna get way more information on it. Obviously the audio input, the audio meters, the giant on air, and then my data. It lets me know if I'm having or getting toward an internet issue, and then I can try to circumvent that, or I could try to reduce a bit rate. Not that I can do that live, but like I could prep my backup. I can get close to it. So That's dope. HDMI in, SDI in, both, just one.
No more HDMI in.
No more HDMI in. So they said, screw you, like ATEM minis. Not that you need this anyway, but they were like, we're hitting the pros. We're not even going to try to do HDMI. We're just going straight for pros. There's a webcam out on the back, and there's a USB-C on the front.
Webcam out is now USB-C.
Yep. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, luckily the future is moving toward USB-C, so that's great there. The SDI in, a loop out with the monitor out. That's nice. Maybe that monitor out is assignable. Maybe you can change what's on that. Maybe. So cool. That's awesome. Obviously, they got the 12 volt there for possibly doing battery backups or just running it off a 12 volt. Okay, show my screen right here. This right here was like we're foreshadowing. We're foreshadowing the future. This HD studio that they're showing with it, it's obsolete now. Like, they still sell it. Maybe they still make it. It's absolutely obsolete. Do not buy this HD studio switcher. I would maybe want to sell ours. I think we're just going to keep it, have it around, throw it somewhere for, like, testing stuff. But, like, this should scream foreshadowing. So I used to say we're good here. My perfect switcher would have been a hybrid between the ATEM Mini Pro ISO and the HD Studio. Give me those SDIs, give me those XLRs, give me the records, give me the USB-C outs, mash it all together, give me it in this form factor, and you'll have made like my perfect on-the-go switcher. I've since changed my thinking a little bit. 8 inputs, 2 outputs, maybe 2 outputs and a multi-view. Barely enough for me at this point. For certain shows, absolutely plenty. For really what I see me doing in the future with hybrid events and us going on site and the confidence monitors and all the different things, to hit our level, this wouldn't do it. Now, you take the Extreme, the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, you mash that with a 2ME. That's good enough. That's plenty to go on site with. Whether you got 6 aux outputs or preferably 10, right? I like my flexibility capabilities. I'm asking a lot here. This is my dream on-the-go switcher. Don't necessarily need an AK on the go. It's a bit much. It's also pretty damn expensive to take out on the road in Iraq and everywhere. But a 2ME around the $3,000, $4,000 price point, which I think they can hit the $4,000 price point, that might be enough to say, okay, I'm going to take this one box out in 4U, 6U rack, no wheels, handheld, might be light enough. Bring a control panel maybe built into that case that I have. So now I got a super powerful rack on over here. I got my case on my 6-foot table. I got 2 road cases full of camera, SDI, stuff like that. Holy crap, I'm fitting into a small van at this point. And I'm giving a really powerful show with, all the laptops. We got all those monitors behind Brian. Like, we can roll in a van and bring an entire production studio with us, like, and do what CNN is doing at this point, like, or ESPN even with these transitions. That's kind of why we built the transitions, by the way. We were looking at ESPN and we were like, these guys are awesome. How can we make all this money we spent worth it and do something like ESPN? And that's one of the ways transitions came about.
And these will now work with
the ATEM Mini
people.
Yes, I'm so happy about that. To be able to take a super source on the go, the only thing we have that does a super source is just permanently kind of installed in our studio here. So be able to take a super source on the road and be able to actually, we used to tell people like, hey, if you want like a really high quality production, like let's run it from here and then we'll virtually bring in people, we'll send out people, whatever. Now I can take a whole virtual studio on site. And I can run command center from the next room, from the room I'm in, with audience around. So that's gonna be super nice. Also, possibly keep costs down. I don't know. I have to do the math on that, to set up and stuff like that. But if I make it efficient enough, if I build enough racks that just a couple cables in and out, then maybe maybe it will be. So yeah, that should the HD Studio next to a web presenter, the form factor that they kept it in, this should scream foreshadowing. Mark my words, they're gonna release some sort of form factor of the television HD Studio, and it's gonna have the capabilities probably of the Extreme, probably SDI in it too. Hopefully an extra aux out. Like give me like improve, not just on like a couple things. Like make sure that it's better. Like I compare it and I'm like 2 USB-Cs. I'm cool with that. I don't think I need more than that. But you know what? Don't even put USB-Cs on the new one. Make me buy an HD web presenter. I'm perfectly okay with that. You're obviously trying to set that up here, Blackmagic. So I'm cool with that. I think it's super helpful. And if that means you can pack more features into an HD television studio or a 4K, it's probably going to be 4K at this point. It's probably going to hit on the pros who want to do that 4K overshooting and things like that. I don't need the encoder. I don't need the USB-Cs necessarily in it. If I got my SDI going into my my web presenter there, then I'm cool. So I'm super psyched for that, and that hits on a little why I'm excited for the future. Like this, give me a 2ME that can do stuff like this, and all of a sudden now you're competing with our $10,000 switcher for $4,000, and you have more capabilities in it. So that's awesome. Let's see. The camera. That's the other thing, right? That's the other thing they announced over here. So the 6K camera. It's dope. Personally, I'm not a big camera guy. I mean, obviously, I do like cameras. I understand them well. But the things that stood out to me, they marketed the Pocket Cinema 6K Pro camera. They prefaced it with saying, people love our cameras. But what we're seeing is they tend to build it out with other stuff, right? They put a bigger battery on it. They give a monitor on it. They have focus lenses and focus control and grips and stabilizers. So they literally said, okay, we built a camera meant to put on a rig. You can still use it by itself, but it's definitely more built out to be rigged out. That's dope. I'm not a big camera guy. They had a built-in ND filter. Is that right, Brian? A built-in ND filter?
Yeah.
So literally inside of the camera, between the lens and the sensor, you take off the lens, there's literally a filter that you click a button and it automatically drops down and then it goes away.
I mean, that's something that the Ursa has, and all higher-end cinema cameras have that. So they were just, I mean, it's the same thing, but the 6K is the same thing, but they added that ND filter and apparently increased battery life.
Yeah.
They're using the Sony batteries.
The NP batteries, I think, or I don't know what they're called exactly.
MP.
Anyway, yeah, battery's huge. That's the other thing. Their new battery grip, genius, finally.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so the whole thing with their battery grip is they had a previous one where they basically it was a dummy battery that went into the camera, and then it had 2 batteries in like a case. So you were replacing one battery with 2 batteries, and they were pretty much the same thing. So you doubled the battery life, right? But at what cost and how big? Now what they've done is they left the battery inside of the camera, and they put like a port on the bottom so that you can basically either slide on or click on this attachment that gave you another 2. So now you've at least tripled the battery life of the camera. And, you know, I was talking to someone else, and I was like, well, why not just get rid of the battery and just always go external or always have a battery pack? And they were like, you know what? That wouldn't work because swapping batteries. And I was like, makes sense. Yeah, you always want that backup. You don't want a battery to get disconnected, fall off, swap it in the middle of a recording and you know, lose your recording, which could mean that you lose the entire file, or at least you stop halfway, and no one wants that. So having that kind of battery built in, at least inside of the camera, that way, you know, you're not gonna lose mid recording, and you can swap batteries, I assume, and it'll probably just hot swap over. So that's super cool. The battery, really smart, well done. Huge improvement over the previous one. Battery life should just be altogether better. I think if I was going to get something like this, I would definitely get that attachment, or I'd always assume I'm going to rig it out with bigger batteries because honestly, what is it? Like, it's ridiculous. Like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something that these pockets normally last. So, which is, we went to Sony's for a little bit. Now we're kind of going back to Blackmagic because in terms of the Pocket Cinema, just because it looks great and the features, and we're coupling it with rigging it out basically. So that's that. What else? Oh, the viewfinder, right? That was huge.
Yeah, the viewfinder. And then, I mean, I don't care much for a viewfinder. I don't
Right.
really do.
And the viewfinder wasn't like, wow, okay, smart, cool guys. Like I don't use a viewfinder. Brian doesn't either. But what the attachment / the connection at the top intrigued me. So it is now an HDMI connection at the top of the camera as well as one on the side. Okay, no SDI. They're not trying to replace their URSAs. And I congratulate Blackmagic on really being like, okay, how do we not replace? We don't want to kick the pros out, but we want to elevate all the consumers, which as a pro I don't like, right? But as a consumer, and I'm kind of in the middle, right? We're like small-ish company, so like, yeah, give us cheaper stuff that can do what our big boys can do, and we can use cheaper stuff. But at the same time, saturating the market, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, putting the HDMI port on top as well as an HDMI on the side. Now I can send a feed out to, let's say, a switcher, and I can put a monitor, an HDMI monitor, maybe a video assist. I got to think they're going to come out with an attachment to attach a video assist or any kind of monitor to the top and expose that HDMI cable or route it and give you a port on like the side or something so that you can plug it in, and just makes the whole thing cleaner. So yeah, I was pumped about the HDMI on top. Still not going to get it, Brian. I don't think you want it. I don't think we need it unless we're going to make upgrades.
Maybe.
If we're getting more cameras, then maybe we look that way.
Yeah.
Maybe we go the URSA route, but yeah. Anything else on the camera?
The last thing that they mentioned was they're finally going to update the 4K Pocket Cinemas and 6K to the Gen 5 color science with the software update that is coming out in a month, I think they said. Yeah, so that'll be cool. I've been playing with it on the new Resolve beta, and I like it. So yeah, somewhat excited about that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, for people who don't know, I consider Brian, like highly regarded in the video field, way more than I am in terms of cameras, color science, editing, things like that. When it comes to switchers and ATEMs and things like that, we're pretty much the same. But yeah, so I defer to him when it comes to cameras and colors and looks. So yeah, that's that. And I'm super excited for the future of Blackmagic. I'm super excited for these future pro models with SDI. Hey, Blackmagic, if you're listening, pros like HDMI 2, not HDMI 2, like HDMI. Like, put some of those on the 8K. Put some of those in your pro grade switchers. Like 4, right? That's enough. Every event going forward is going to have some sort of hybrid component, or at least on-site events will have some sort of virtual component. We will most likely be using laptops and not strictly SDI everywhere. I'm not bummed that these pro-grade switchers only have SDI. I have enough converters. Like, it just means I have to spend more money to do it, but when you get in the pro world, that's kind of what you have to do. But a couple HDMIs. Hell, throw an HDMI or two on the front. Usually the switcher's decently close by, especially if I'm on site. I might be putting it under the table, but it's not necessarily in a separate room. That's when I do an install. When, I go on site, the switcher's almost next to me because my connections are just closer. Give me some HDMIs on the front. Give me a headphone jack on the front. You gave me TalkBack, right? But give me a headphone port. We have wireless comms. We don't even integrate our comm system into our switchers. So we don't really do it through the cameras. It's just faster to be wireless for us. So things like that.
Currently right now, right? the only switcher that they're selling it with HDMI and SDI is the HD Studio, right?
And the 1ME and the 4K 1ME and the 4K production switchers also have both. That's why a lot of people in the middle ground, kind of where we started in video, where it was we did corporate conferences, but we weren't live streaming or anything, or maybe once in a while. We got that HD Studio, we got that 4K production hub, not the ME, just the production hub. Kind of regret that. Kind of now I want MEs because I can upstream keys with zooming in, DVEs, things like that. But yeah, those are the only switchers that have both. Those are the middle ground. And foreshadowing with the web presenter, I gotta think another one's coming. I gotta think they're gonna take all this, and I gotta think you're gonna see maybe an 8 or a 10 port 4K TV studio upgrade to that form factor. The 2/3 fits right next to a web presenter, all in one rack. It's gonna have 2 USB-Cs. It's gonna probably have maybe 5 and 5. That'd be cool. 4 and 4. Who knows? Gonna have a super source in it. I think they can't take a step backwards anymore. I think now everything's gonna be super source moving forward. It's gonna have at least one. Honestly, we have 2 of them. Maybe we use 2. It's great to do cascading. The DVEs, by the way, like boom. I don't think we've done a 6-box.
Yeah, maybe a couple times, but definitely the fact that there was no SDI on this. Extreme tells you that the next HD Studio is going to be really the switcher that you and I have been hoping for, right? Like,
yeah, and like I was saying, like I'll probably get it. I have an addiction to gear. I will say that straight to the camera. I will admit it. I love tech, gear. I want to buy always the latest, greatest stuff. Who doesn't? Who's in this industry? And so that's me. I'm probably gonna get it. Now, if I really, depending on price, obviously, if it's that good, I get 2. I love my backups, and if I see it and scaling, I'm like, okay, Brian and I split up. I go on one gig, run a show. Brian goes on another gig, runs a show. We both want to have the same gear. We don't want to get stuck in a situation where, like, oh, we don't have these capabilities. So the next one, do I get 2 of them if they build this thing I'm talking about? Maybe. Again, I really want the 2ME hybrid. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, not enough capabilities. I get stuck in these situations. 20 inputs, 10 aux outs. That are assignable, obviously, to a multi-view or whatever. Give me some HDMIs and SDIs on those inputs. And what else? Give me 2 USB-Cs. Give me ISOs, things like that. Give me. I sound like I'm like, 12 years old. But if you want to make the perfect switcher that can handle literally like the switcher people can dream of and take on site, but still be pro enough to install in a studio, like that's what we're talking about. We're getting there. XLRs. Okay. The other thing that Blackmagic doesn't do unless you connect it with MADI, I think it's their audio protocol, mix minus signals. Welcome to the future of hybrid events. If you don't already know how to do audio mix minus signals, start learning. Okay. Basically, that means, let's say we're using Zoom. Super simplified, right? Let's say we're using Zoom. We have audio coming from Zoom. I'm talking. I need to send audio to Zoom. Okay, I send them my audio feed. I get their audio feed. But let's say I need to have 2 people talk to each other via Zoom on different Zoom calls. I have people on stage who need to hear Zoom, but I need Zoom to only hear the people on stage and not themselves back. This is called mix minus. It's about routing audio signals. You could do the same thing, applies to video signals too. Blackmagic. I have some ideas on how to do this, but if you could integrate mix minus signals natively into your switchers, routing protocols for audio, things like that. Now I need an audio mixer right now to bring in different microphones, route to a stage speaker, then route to a program feed, route into Brian's headphones for queuing, things like that. Now they have headphones for queuing, so that's cool, which is assignable. So big, hey, good job, Blackmagic, on that. So that would be awesome if you could integrate mix minus audio signals into a switcher. That will come in handy down the road. I run into problems that a lot of people don't even see yet because we're already doing some hybrid stuff and we're planning for the future, and I'm seeing where pitfalls will be. You're never going to completely like satisfy every possible need that I would ever want. That's impossible. Maybe if I spend $100,000 on a bunch of gear, then we can get there. But then I'm going to be like, let's make it smaller. So yeah, I'm never going to be like, it's never going to be absolutely perfect. This is it. Let me sell everything else. But you get pretty damn close with that extreme. Okay, letting you know now. And I think you're going to get even closer and closer with your pro models. Welcome to the world of Supersource, guys. If you don't already, grab our transitions that you saw here. Brian, go ahead and just hit a bunch of them. Let them see what's coming. Yeah, these are free. Subscribe. Send us an email if you want these. I hope you liked our discussion today. And I think, Brian, that's it, right? I don't have anything else, really.
Yeah, that's it.
Dope. All right. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed. And if we should never do another one of these, don't let us know, because I like doing these. I like talking on the mic. And hopefully someone learned something here. So we're good. We're out. Thanks. Bye. Subscribe, please. Thank you.